And I'm here on a mission of mercy. Money's out there, you pick it up, it's yours. You don't, I got no sympathy for you. Do I have your attention? Do I have your attention? Put that coffee down. Put that coffee down. That's my name. That's my name.
The champ is here! 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 The champ is here!
Only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
Well, happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ronell Richards, for those of you that aren't unaware, and welcome into this impromptu live event. So, this week, we just released one of our newest courses. It's called Sales Fundamentals for Entrepreneurs, and that is available on at sayless.academy, which let me throw a banner up for that real quick. Boop, boop, boo. Sayless.academy, which is my platform for sales courses, right? So many of you may know that I create courses, bespoke courses for companies. So, there are sales courses that we do specifically for companies. There are sales courses that I create for LinkedIn as a employee of LinkedIn and an instructor of LinkedIn. So there's LinkedIn courses. And then there is my platform, which is called Sayless.academy. And on Sayless.academy right now, we have we've got two courses. Three courses now on there. We've got philosophy of sales, we've got tactical execution, and now this week, sales fundamentals for entrepreneurs. Let me pop this on there. So I wanted to take some time today to kind of drop some gems, hopefully, and share some of the insights from that. But I also want to give you guys a little bit of additional background and context. So I was having this conversation earlier this week with a very influential leader in the technology channel space, right? Someone that's been in the business for decades and is one of the a board member with one of the nonprofits that I serve. Anyhow, so as we're having this conversation, she's telling me that, of the other board members, while they all know me because of how high profile I am in the industry, they did not know some very important facts about me and my background. And it started I was started thinking, I'm like, how many people don't, right? Like, it's kind of like, I think about when myth takes over for facts, right? I'll give you guys an example. So many people may have know the John Henry story, right? And so John Henry was this mythical uh, um, figure in American folklore, and it's African American, and he was just in our community. John Henry is used as kind of an example of strength and determination and perseverance. So it's this bigger than life character who basically helped build the railroad, right? The Transcontinental Railroad. And he was so strong and so determined that he beat a machine, right? Like a steam powered machine. So they had a competition. It was John Henry versus the machine, and he beat the machine out. And his determination was so strong that it actually killed him, right? Like he outworked the machine, and then his heart exploded, right? Because of that determination and the strength. So it's something that a lot of us are taught, as one of those folklore. There's plenty of folklore stories, right? Like Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan, stuff like that. What you find out is that a lot of the stuff is rooted in some semblance of truth. However, the folklore overtakes the facts and the reality. So, for example, with John Henry actually did exist, but it wasn't the pretty story that we like to tell. In fact, John Henry was in prison. This is post Civil War. He was imprisoned and forced to work on on the railroad, right? And he did not die like they said. He died from like a lung disease. Anyhow, so I think about in reference to my own the facts of my life and this social media world and the brand and all the stuff, and how in some ways the brand has overshown who I am in some respects, and taken a bit control of the narrative to where many people don't know my story. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my story. And then I also, because some of this is in the book, I always kind of like assume that people know because they've read the book or something. But like a lot of people have not. A lot of people have read the book, but a whole lot more people have not read the book. Thank you to the couple of thousands of people that read the book. Thank you. If you have not read the book, I encourage you to, or listen to it. Shut the Hell Up and Sell. It's available on Amazon, whichever way you want to consume it. So digital download, paperback, and audio. So here's my story. Because as I released this course on sales fundamentals and entrepreneurship, the first question you should be asking yourself is, well, what qualifies Reinel to talk about this topic? Like, why should we listen to him? What does he know that's any different than the other million voices out there? Well, I'll start by saying that I am not just a teacher. I am a practitioner. It is my life. Entrepreneurship has been my life, and more specifically, entrepreneurial sales. One of the things that sets me apart from others is that others have entered into the entrepreneur world to start teaching sales tactics and sales things that they learned in a structure. They learned, and not to knock on them, but they learned in working for a company. They learned working for another business. And so they took that within that structure that they entered into, they were able to be successful, right? And so now they teach what made them successful in that structure to others. The thing about being an entrepreneur is that I often say that the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And it's also the most terrifying thing. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. You have no structure. You have to create the structure. You have no frameworks. You have to create the frameworks. And this is one of the reasons why entrepreneurs struggle in sales and other things, is because they have to create all these things for themselves. There is no framework that you're stepping into. So my background is in entrepreneurial sales, creating those frameworks and those structures for myself. And so what I've done in all of my teachings is taken that philosophy, taken that mindset, taken that experience, and distilled that into books and courses that people can relate to, and that people can, and that are super practical and straight to the point and prescriptive, right? So that you can get your clear takeaways, so you can have you can take action. All right. So again, context. Why me? So let me tell you my story. So as long as I can remember, I have been an entrepreneur. Okay. And that goes beyond my adult life. I was born into a home of entrepreneurs. My parents own multiple businesses, and my parents were very young. My mother is um, almost 18 years older than me, and my father is 20 years older than me. And so when they're in their 20s and, and exploring their entrepreneurial um, or pursuing their entrepreneurial dreams, which by the way has never stopped. My parents are entrepreneurs to this day. I was right there with them. Okay. So it started from as far back as I can remember, 5 years old, being involved in business and my dad's business ideas. One thing I want to encourage you guys to do out there, if you are an entrepreneur, involve, or even if you're not an entrepreneur, just in business, whatever, involve your kids, man. They learn so much by what they see. So from the very beginning, I knew this was going to be the path for me. That it wasn't even something that I had to think about, which so many of you, I know when you get to adulthood, I have kids that are young adults right now going through this, trying to think, what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? What am I going to be? The one thing, sure, I had some of that, but the one thing I always knew is that I was going to be a businessman, right? I always knew that. So my parents started businesses, and I was right there along with them. And one of the businesses that they started was a beauty supply and beauty salon. So it's retail business. And at the ages of 7 and 8 years old, I would take deposits to the bank. I was doing inventory. I was working the cash register. I can remember the days where we actually set the business up, like putting wallpaper on the walls, painting, putting shelves up, all of these things. I was intimately involved in that business and every business that my parents ever did from that point. Real estate, multiple retail things that my parents did. Real estate business was something they got into as well. So, as a teenager, I took eviction notices to the courthouse. Like, so entrepreneurship has always been part of my DNA. In addition to that, I was very involved in religion. This was my mother's religion as a kid. So when I was in single digits, I was knocking on doors, selling religion, knocking on doors at a very young age. Once I got into adulthood, I got into my very first professional sales job, which was in retail jewelry. And I learned so many valuable sales philosophies there, but I also learned business, right? As I was working for a company that at the time, not quite 100 years old, but they were started in 1914, and it was a family business all up to that point. Almost 100 years in business at the time that I went to work for them, but stayed in the family. And so you learn so much by seeing how family businesses operate. You learn how to create business and how to sell in a way that is sustainable. I want you guys to think about, like, a business that started in 1914, how many things they went through, how many economic downturns, how many they went through the Great Depression. They went through all of these, the stock market crash, went all the multiple stock market crashes, all of these things, selling a luxury item, and yet they're still around. How does that happen? It happens because of understanding how to create and build and grow relationships, right? Which is one of the bedrocks to my philosophy in sales and entrepreneurship. This is what I've done, what I've learned through my family experience. And then when I entered into that world in jewelry, which again was my very first sales gig, and I quickly rose up to management, the youngest manager in that company at the time. So my peers were in their 40s and 50s, and I was 21. So after that, that's when I got into the technology world, got into technology sales. And About a couple years into that, like again, the path for me has always been entrepreneurship. Always. I have notebooks all around me right now. I'm going to pull some of these out for you guys. Notebooks all around me. I have notebooks that go back 30 years and beyond that are always about business, always about ideas. I always write those entrepreneurial ideas down. So it's again part of my DNA. So in 2004 ish, I started a company by the name of RD Direct, and RD Direct was a technology sales agency. So this is really in the somewhat of the infancy of what we call the technology sales channel right now, which is a really a massive niche industry. And I was there for that. I actually sold my very first deal in that business in 2001. However, I started my first company in 2004. Just like many entrepreneurs, started out of a room in my house, and I funded that through credit cards, through unemployment benefits, like whatever I could. And I took jobs, did everything to get that business to success. That business started as me, and over the years it grew to as large as about 36 people that worked for RD Direct. My forte is building sales campaigns, scaling sales organizations. So of those 36, probably 36-ish, probably 25 of them were salespeople, right? And through the course of doing that, running that company, which I ran for 13 years, we hired hundreds of salespeople. And as an entrepreneur, as a guy that again didn't have a framework, I didn't have a structure. I had to create all the structure. I created every single script. I created every single campaign. I created every single compensation plan. I created everything, right? And so when you've done that, when you have that experience and you've done it for a lot of years, it gives you a decided advantage and differentiator. So again, when I talk about my experience as an entrepreneur, it doesn't just start like many, doesn't just start with, hey, I want to be a consultant. No, this is what I've been doing my full career. So after RD Direct, at the same time, I acquired a company called ComSol, which did the same similar thing. So ComSol and RD Direct sold a lot of technology services to the point of over 15,000 customers, mostly small, medium-sized business customers. Over 15,000 customers we sold. I have yet to do the numbers on what that revenue standpoint, but I'm going to figure that out and put it on the website. So, but somewhere in, I don't know, the hundreds of millions, probably, I would guess somewhere between 100 and 150 million dollars in revenue. As an entrepreneur, that's not money in my pocket, right? That's contract values. Those are contracts that we sold for other companies. So, profit and revenue or gross revenues are two total different things. That said, that's my story. That's my background. From there, I've still maintained an agency to this day. So I have a technology sales agency that has been we've been selling technology products for 20 years, right? Now it's 2024, for 20 years. In addition to that, my consulting firm that I started in 2016, Business and Bourbon, that we started around, actually didn't start as a monetizable company. It just was a platform, and now it's a monetizable company. Started monetizing that, pardon me, in about 2018. About 2018. In addition to that, I've been involved with many businesses, and through my consulting firm, many businesses. And so I think this context is important for you guys to understand that entrepreneurship is not something I talk about. It's something that it's who I am. And so when you are creating a course or you're creating information around entrepreneurship, Who better than someone that has been involved in it their whole life? Because success in anything lies in the gray, it lies in the nuance, right? Like anybody can say the basic stuff, right? Like, hey, listen, like from a sales or business perspective, there's always like the obvious stuff. Hey, listen, you have to go do prospecting in order to sell stuff. You got to build a funnel in order to sell stuff. But there's so much nuance to each industry, to each business, to each approach to how you get there. How does an entrepreneur do it? How does a retail entrepreneur do it? How does a B2B entrepreneur do it? Like there's a lot of nuance to that. And so what I seek to do is to, through my experience, address that nuance and help entrepreneurs to be more successful faster, right? And so you don't have to go through everything that I went through in order to get to the point that I did. So like I learned a whole lot of lessons. I took a lot of uppercuts. I took a lot of what do you call them? The blindside shots, a lot of blindside shots so that you don't have to. So I've distilled that down into this course, Sales Fundamentals for Entrepreneurs. It's on sayless.academy. So go check that out. Use code SELLBETTER. Sell Better will get you a discount this week. All right. So I want to go through a few questions that I've been asked about this course and just kind of address some things for you. So I have a list here that's been put in front of me, and I haven't really looked at them. So I'm going to just pull them out. First one is, what are the key sales fundamentals that every entrepreneur should master? Key fundamentals. Keep planting. Keep planting. Oftentimes, not just entrepreneurs, all sellers, but entrepreneurs get fixated on specific opportunities. They get fixated on specific customers. And this is something that I learned as well the hard way. And so you have to always be planting. You got to always be prospecting. When times are good, because business is cyclical, when times are good, you got to lean into that, right? You can't sit and rest on your laurels. You have to continue to plant seeds. You got to continue to prospect, and you got to have a mechanism in place to keep yourself accountable to prospecting, because as entrepreneurs, we have nobody to hold us accountable. We have no boss. We've got no system or no structure that says, hey, you have to do X amount of prospecting a day. You got to make X amount of calls. You got to send X amount of emails. We don't have that. And so we have to enforce that on ourselves. We have to hold ourselves accountable. And that's why, again, in the course, I give very prescriptive, specific direction on how to do that and what sort of metrics that you should hold yourself accountable to, right? So that, there's a model for success, which as entrepreneurs, that's something that we just don't have. If we're doing something that we've never done before, we have no model of success. We may know someone that's in the business that is, making money, but there's no one modeling success for us. That's different. Modeling implies that there is a example that we can follow. There are things that we can do that have been prescribed to us. So that's one of the things I was seeking to do in this course, is to model what success and sales success is for an entrepreneur. All right, next question. Why is building long-term relationships more important than just closing sales? Here's the beauty of, I love this question. Why is building long-term relationships more important than just closing sales? So if I was talking to an audience of just salespeople, I'm going to talk about the importance of investing in these long-term relationships and how that's going to translate to long-term success. Now we're going to get into the nuance, get into the gray, because I'm talking to entrepreneurs. That's why this course is so specific, because entrepreneurs, your use case is different. There's a challenge as an entrepreneur. You don't have the runway that someone that's getting a salary has, right? You don't have the runway for that. So you have to balance get money now and get money later. So what's important to do is to first start to create your ICP model as an entrepreneur. So you know who is your ideal customer and who is ideal for you to do business with. And then you got to make decisions. Sometimes this is the ideal person you want to do business with, but sometimes you're doing business with somebody down here and they're not ideal, but you need the money. But by creating your ideal client profile, when you work with this customer down here, you're doing it with eyes open. You're aware. That makes a significant difference, right? It makes a significant difference when you understand, hey, listen, this may not be my ICP, but I need this money. And so you go into it eyes wide open and you understand what sort of outcomes could potentially come of that. Ideally, the focus is to be doing business with just your ICP. But as you start a business, you got to make that compromise. But you're making that compromise eyes open and with a focus on getting here. It's compromises, right? When I started my business, RD Direct, I remember I was interviewed by Channel Partners back in like 2005, 2006. And the question was, how do you prefer compensation? Everyone that answered that, for the most part, that they polled, and that was in that article said residuals. I said, I need upfront. I need upfronts. Yeah, residuals are great. And that's, ultimately the goal, right? So you have long-term success, but like I had bills to pay. I had payroll to make. And so getting upfront compensation was a way for me to be able to address those immediate concerns. Now, the smart thing to do is to get that and then work on another plan that helps you to grow that residual. But these are the sort of nuances that people without strong long-term entrepreneurial experience can't really speak to. They coach everybody the same way. And an entrepreneur experience is vastly different than a seller's experience or a leader in a company's experience, because it's you at the end of the day. You have all the risk, you have all the responsibility, and you have no system or framework for accountability. All right. Next question. What strategies can entrepreneurs use to identify their ideal client profile? That's a good question. So first, I will say go to sayless.academy and choose the Sales for Fundamentals course. And I'm giving away the first module for free, and that is about ICP. Okay. So I'm giving that away totally for free. So you can start to build your ICP. But here's a couple of tips. So ICP, for those of you that don't know, is your ideal client profile. So these are ultimately the people, the companies that you produce the very best outcomes for. That's how I like to distill it down. Think about, who do I crush it with, right? Like what do they look like? What sort of business are they in? What sort of person are they in? Like, who do I have the very best relationships with in my business and produce, not just relationships, meaning you guys go have beers and have a good time. No, but you produce the very best outcomes for. That's your ICP. So the idea is to identify and actually get that out of your head and put it on paper, and then put strategies in your business to get more of these people. Okay. Because getting more of these people is what's going to build you or set you up for long-term success in your business and make doing business enjoyable and easier. Because when you do business with people that you get great outcomes for one, you're happy. You're happy, they're happy. It's a good partnership. In addition to that, they start to become brand advocates for you. They start to become non-payroll salespeople. So now you start to notice that you're getting referrals. They're bringing people to you, and you're growing your business with more people that fit your ICP, right? So it's really the very best long-term strategy. That's how a company like the company that I worked for stays around for 100 years, right? Is because you build a business around advocates, and those advocates advocate for you. In the jewelry business, it was, hey, you know, um, grandpa brought in his grandson. Well, it started with bringing in his son. Listen, I bought my ring from these guys that were fantastic. I love them, and I go in there 4 times a year for the other stuff. Here, son, this is who you need to shop with. Then son comes in there, and he has that same experience, okay, and he comes in there 4 times a year. Then the next generation, same thing happens, right? So understanding your ICP and delivering fantastic outcomes and experiences for them. All right, next question. How can entrepreneurs effectively differentiate their product or service in a crowded market? That's one of my favorite questions to answer, because I think people try to shy away from crowded markets because of the level of competition. The one thing about a crowded marketplace, that tells me that there's a lot of people that can be sold, for one, right? There's a lot of people in the pool because there's a lot of people to be sold. What I've learned over years is that we live in a monkey see, monkey do world. Okay. So oftentimes in crowded marketplaces, you find the competition all kind of doing the same things. They're all kind of doing the same things, and they're doing a race to the bottom from a pricing perspective. So like they end up being focused on transaction, they end up being focused on, price, and that's how they lead. So what that does, now granted, there are people that are going to just be focused on price and transaction, right? But what that does is it creates an opportunity, a niche opportunity for those that choose to swim upstream. So instead of focusing on price, you focus on quality. I'll give you guys an example. Wendy's. Just watched this on the Discovery Channel when Wendy's opened. Wendy's was Wendy's, the hamburger franchise. At the time, McDonald's is crushing it, Burger King is crushing it, and several other fast food places. So what Wendy's did, they went into this very competitive landscape, and they could have just said, okay, we got to find a way to do what McDonald's does and cheaper so that we can get market share. But no, they said, nah, you know what we're going to do? McDonald's is selling hamburgers for 5 cents. We're going to sell them for 60. They sold hamburgers for 60 cents. But the way that they were able to do that is they said, we're going to do fresh meat, because they're all doing frozen. So we're going to do fresh. We're going to make it in a square shape, right? Because square looks bigger and feels bigger. So our customers feel like they're getting more value. They feel like they're getting more for their money. And we're going to focus on some fresh ingredients and all that sort of thing. And where's Wendy's today? So I love crowded marketplaces because it gives you an opportunity to stand out by doing something different, by swimming upstream, as opposed to, now here's the other side of that. The other side is when you are first to the marketplace, or you're new. That sounds super appetizing, and it sounds like, yeah, that's where you want to be. But let me tell you something. Again, entrepreneurial experience. That's much harder than you think. I've tried to be on the front end of many new technologies. Back in 2005-ish, I was in what now we call UCaaS, VoIP phone service. I was in the VoIP phone service business. Okay. In 2005, I said, listen, this is going to be the future. So I'm getting into this. I had about a dozen salespeople knocking doors. And we couldn't make it work at the time. Here's why we couldn't make it work, is because being first to market requires a heavy investment in education, right? People, when you're doing something that's new, people, even if it could potentially be better for them, better services and all that stuff, it's scary. And so you have to spend a lot of time and a lot of money in educating the marketplace so that you could sell your product. So for us, we just didn't have that runway. We didn't have the money, and we to be able to educate and sell. Fast forward, I had another similar example. Oh, cybersecurity. So in right now, cybersecurity, everybody gets it, right? In 2011-ish, 2012, I created a campaign focused on cybersecurity. We went after all of our database, cybersecurity, and we created these really cool ads. And one of the ads was like, hey, it was basically like a kid on a computer, like this innocent looking kid, and it was like, oh, this is the new bank robber, right? And so anyway, we just couldn't make it work to the level that we needed to because, again, there was a lot of education that needed to be done. Like the fear hadn't stoked as hadn't that fear fire hadn't been stoked as much as it is today. Now it's like a no-brainer. So those are the challenge. Now I'm not saying that being first to market is bad. Let's be clear. I'm just saying that there's different challenges. So for entrepreneurs like most of you that are SMB, being first to market means heavy investment on education. And you got to have a long time to be able to educate and sell and let the market catch up to you. Whereas in a crowded space, there is a faster opportunity to success by one, serving niche communities, and two, swimming upstream, doing something, focusing on quality of product, focusing on quality of your product and service can be a key differentiator and separator. Okay, let's take another question. Oh, how can entrepreneurs balance the need to scale their sales efforts with maintaining personalized customer interactions? I like that. I'm going to say that one more time. How can entrepreneurs balance the need to scale their sales efforts with maintaining personalized customer interactions? So the answer to that is you have to leverage technology. You got to leverage technology. A lot of small businesses. Here's the number one advice that I would give to you as a small business. When you start, get a CRM. Start with your CRM, customer relationship management tool. If you do not have one, you don't know what that is, look it up. Look for tools like Pipedrive or Zoho. When you start your business, the very first thing that you need to do is to get a CRM, because what most of us do is we get a CRM later in our business journey, and so now we're playing catch up. We're playing catch up, and it's just hard. It's hard to input the data. It's hard to manage it, and it's hard to create accountabilities for ourselves when we didn't start that from the very beginning. So the number one thing I would tell you is get a CRM, learn it, implement it, and hold yourself accountable to it. That'll get you set up the right way and put you in a position to be able to scale and to be able to scale your customer communications and customer interactions in a way that still feels gives a level of intimacy, right? So you can, through your outreach, through your scheduling in your CRM, it'll keep you on track and keep you or allow you to be able to maintain those relationships with customers. So I'm not going to give you any more than that. That's the most important thing. Get your CRM, get it now, learn it, use it. That's what's going to help you scale. Okay, next one. What are some common mistakes entrepreneurs make in their sales approach, and how can they avoid them? Common mistakes. The first one I'll say is you try to serve everyone. Go back to what I had said earlier. You try to serve everyone. There's a balance in entrepreneurship. You got to get money now, and you got to have an eye towards the future. So one of the biggest mistakes I see entrepreneurs make is they don't do the ICP work. They don't know who their ideal client profile is, and they don't do business with people intentionally with the focus on that ICP. Because with most of you guys, you can do business with anybody. You can do business with anyone, but that doesn't mean that you should. You shouldn't do business with everyone. And then those people that don't fit that ICP, ideal client profile mold, perfectly, if you're doing business with them with your eyes open going into it, you'll be able to produce better outcomes for them and for you. So that's the number one thing I think is that ICP work is not done. Second thing, we fall in love with too much in love with our product or service, and not and by doing so, it takes us away from the ultimate objective and the ultimate goal, which is to be successful at business, to produce great outcomes for people. So sometimes we fall too much in love with our widget, and without realizing that none of us are selling widgets, we're selling solutions. It's not your widget, it's what your widget does or doesn't do for somebody. That's the value that you bring. So when you understand that, then you understand that your focus should be on making impact, bringing value to people and their businesses. So if that's what your focus is, you're not married to your widget. You're married to the outcome and the successes that you're going to produce for everyone. So you're following the path of success, which is like a river, right? Like it doesn't go north and south and go east and west. And you have to pay attention to the universe. You got to pay attention to your customers. You got to pay attention to the environment and be willing to adjust and evolve in order to be successful and not be so married to your widget. So that's one of the probably the second thing. All right, I'm going to answer one more question, and get the hell up out of here. Let's see. Last question. How does adopting an entrepreneurial mindset benefit a sales professional? So, as a lifetime entrepreneur, I have learned that the key to success is one, in building relationships. It all comes down to that, building the relationships and producing great outcomes. That's the long-term game. So for a salesperson, whether you are an entrepreneur or you're an individual contributor at a company, if you focus on the entrepreneurial mindset, which is all about building relationships, you ask any entrepreneur out there, they will all say the same thing. Anyone that's been successful, anyone that hasn't been successful, they'll say that it comes down to relationships. Like the successful ones will say that, hey, I did work with this customer, and then that customer referred somebody else, and then that customer referred somebody else, and hey, I still do business with this. They will all say the same thing. So as an individual contributor, if you take that sort of mindset to your business and take more of an investment in the success of the people that you sell, you have the ability to build similar type of entrepreneurial relationships. And those entrepreneurial relationships will translate to long-term success. And see, the thing about an entrepreneurial mindset in sales is it makes sales easier. It makes sales funner, makes it more enjoyable. Because who doesn't enjoy doing business with people that you like and that like you? Who doesn't enjoy creating great outcomes for people? Who doesn't enjoy impacting businesses and impacting lives? And what you'll find is that a lot of successful entrepreneurs, like their best customers, are their best friends. They go hang out, they go on vacations together, and again, business becomes easier for them because the grind of prospecting becomes easier. You do less hardcore prospecting because you have brand advocates. You have non-payroll salespeople out there that are selling for you all the time. They're called your customers that you built these great relationships with. So now your sales activity changes when you focus on building great relationships. Now your sales and prospecting activities aren't so much about you going out and pitching to new people and exposing your brand to people that have never heard of you and having to go through the whole process of building credibility. It starts to become about activating your advocates that are already out there. So it's about keeping communication and giving them direction and helping them to help you. Because in sales, we spend 70% of our time just trying to build credibility. Think about it, 70% of our time just trying to build credibility. That is prospecting, that's getting on calls and discovery calls and educating people about what it is that we do and who we are and all that stuff. We spend 70% of our time doing that. If you take an entrepreneurial mindset and focus to sales, it's a cheat code, because now most of the new people that you're talking to, you already have credibility with. You already have credibility because they were referred to you by someone that they know, love, and trust. So it's a cheat code. That's why an entrepreneurial mindset is so successful for individual contributors. But it takes a sacrifice from you. You're going to have to sacrifice early on, meaning that you're going to have to work a little harder. You're going to have to do a little bit more, and you're going to have to fight against some of the narrative that your companies are going to put out there, or some of the direction that you're going to have to manage that. Meaning that as you're an individual contributor, your company doesn't necessarily care about you building relationships with people. They may say they do, but they don't really care about you building relationship with your customers. That sounds like you've never heard that before, right? Like they want you to go out there and build and take people to dinner and take people to lunch. And I'm telling you right now, your company doesn't care about you building relationships with your customers. And you're like, no, dude, you're wrong. No, I'm right. Here's what they care about. They care about them building relationships with your customers. All of those things that you're doing are ways to endear the company to those people, because they have to, as a company, they got to think about, hey, look, Tammy and Johnny, they ain't not here forever. Tammy and Johnny might be here for 6 months, 2 years, or whatever. We have to endear ourselves to these customers, and we have to provide services to them and outcomes to them that make them loyal to us, not to Tammy and Jimmy and Johnny, but to the company, which is what a company should do. But I'm telling you, Tammy, Johnny, and Jenny, that you can't divorce yourself of relationships with customers. It's not in your best interest to go like woo them over and then, just rely on somebody else to execute. You have to keep yourself involved in that process early on, not necessarily doing all the work that somebody else would do, but never divorcing yourself from that relationship and staying in that relationship so that you get to take credit for the great outcomes that customer gets. And you're not just the person on the front end that, wined and dined them and then, moved on to the next. Now, when you do that, you're going to be building an advocate for yourself, much like an entrepreneur does. And think about that. Like I said, a successful entrepreneur down the road, they're getting opportunities, they're getting sales from brand advocates, right? They're getting these referrals. That's how you get it. You don't get those from just being like the good looking, nice guy on the front end of the sale. Shook their hand, they signed, and then you went about because I was that guy early in my career. I think I see him kind of good looking, but early in my career, I was that guy. Show up, bring some donuts, shake a hand, give him that $1 million smile, sell him. All right, thank you, appreciate you. Peace. I'm on to the next one. And what happens with that is you don't build advocates for yourself. Even if once the company delivers great results for that customer, the company takes credit for that, not you. And what happens is that the companies, you'll find again that those people are loyal to the company and not so loyal to you. All right, so my doorbell's ringing, which tells me that probably FedEx is here, and it's time for me to wrap. I appreciate you guys. If you hung out and watched this on replay or live, thank you. Please go to sayless.academy and use code SELLBETTER to get a discount on the entrepreneurial sales fundamentals for entrepreneurs course, which was just released this week. Super proud of it. It's got lots of quizzes and downloadable content in there to help you to really chart your success. So if you're an entrepreneur, get in on this. If you're a wannabe entrepreneur, get in on this. If you're a new entrepreneur, get in on this. If you're an old entrepreneur, get in on this. All right. Thanks for your time, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. Bye-bye.